Class 4, Rhythm Part 2, Strong and Weak Beats, Adding Rests in Simple Time and Compound Time. Triplet. A triplet is a group of 3 notes that are played in the time of 2 notes of the same value. They are most frequently found in simple time. Triplets are usually indicated by a 3, for example. For the first one, there are 3 notes. 3/8 notes with a 3 on the bottom, which means that this is played in the time of 2/8 notes, which is equal to a quarter note. Now in the second one, there are 3 quarter notes with a 3, which means that it's played in the time of two quarter notes, which is equal to a half note. The third one, there are 3/8 notes again with the 3, so it's the same thing as the first one. And the last one, there are 3/16 notes with the 3, which means they're played in the time of 2/16 notes. Which is equal to an 1/8 note. Now, strong and weak beats. So there's duple time, triple time, and quadruple time. So in duple time, in 2/4 time, the first beat is strong, and the second beat is weak. And in 2/8 time, it's the same. The first beat is strong, and the second beat is weak. And in 2/2 time, it's the same. The first beat is strong, and the second beat is weak. So in any duple time, the first beat is always strong, and the second beat is always weak. And in the next few slides, I'll explain why you need to know the strong and weak beats. Now, triple time. Triple time in 3/4 time, the first beat is strong, and the second and third beats are weak. In 3/8 time, the first beat is strong, and the second beats are weak. And also in 3/2 time, the first beat is strong, and the second and third beats are weak. Now in quadruple time, in 4/4 time, there's one strong beat, which is the first beat, and there's a weak beat, which is the second beat, and the third beat is a medium beat. So medium beats are stronger than weak beats, but weaker than strong beats. Now the fourth one is another weak beat. In 4/8 time, it's the same. First one is strong, and the third one is medium, and the second and fourth are weak. And also in 4/2 time, the first note is strong, the third note is medium, and the second and last are weak. Grouping notes in simple duple time. When grouping notes in simple duple time, finish each beat in turn. If the rhythm has notes of the same value, join beats 1 and 2. If the rhythm has notes of different values, do not join beats in 2. So in the examples shown below, the first one is in 2/4 time. So you're allowed to write it. You're allowed to write 4 quarter notes. You're allowed to write 4/16 note with 2/8 notes, and you can also write an dotted 8th note with 3/16 notes and an 8th note. But you can also write it in a different way, like shown below. So since it said if the rhythm has notes of the same value, in the first bar they're all 8th notes, so you can join beats 1 and 2. So you can join all 4 of them into 1. In the second bar, the 4/16 notes at the front have the same value, so you can join these beats. And then there are two eighth notes, which are different value than 16th note, so you're not allowed to connect the eighth notes with the 16th note. So the eighth notes have to be on their own. And the third one, you can join the dotted eighth note and the 16th note together to make this. And then there's this one beat because the dotted eighth note and the 16th note together makes one beat. So the 16th notes and the 16th note and the 8th note can be joined together to finish the second beat. Grouping notes in simple triple time. When grouping notes in simple triple time, finish each beat in turn. If the rhythm has notes of the same value, join beats 1 and 2 or beats 1, 2, and 3. If the rhythm has notes of different values, do not join the beats. So in the first one, there are 6 eighth notes, 4 16th notes, 2 eighth notes, a quarter note, and then the last part there's a dotted eighth note, a 16th note, and 2 quarter notes. So the 6 eighth notes can be grouped together because they're notes of the same value, so you can join beats 1, 2, and 3 together. And there are 4 16th notes, and they can be joined together to finish the first beat. And then there are 2 eighth notes which can be joined together to finish the beat again, and the quarter note has to be like that. And then there's a dotted eighth note with the 16th note, and they can be joined together to finish the beat, finish the first beat. And then the 2 quarter notes can't be joined together, so they're written like that. Grouping notes in simple quadruple time. When grouping notes in simple quadruple time, finish each beat in turn. If the rhythm has notes of different values, do not join the beats. So the one at the top, there is 4 eighth notes and 2 quarter notes, 4 16th notes, 2 eighth notes, a dotted eighth note, a 16th note, and a quarter note, and 6 16th notes, 3 eighth notes, a dotted eighth note, and a 16th note. So first you can join the eighth. You can join the 4 eighth notes to finish the beat. And then there are 2 quarter notes that can't be joined together. And you can also join the 16th notes to finish each beat, the first beat. And you can join the eighth notes to finish the second beat, and the dotted eighth note and the 16th note to finish the third beat, and the quarter note for the last beat. And you can also join the 4 16th notes, and you can't join these two because that would make a half beat, which isn't what you want. So you can join the 2 16th notes with this eighth note after. And then there are 2 other eighth notes which can be joined together to make the third beat. And then there's a dotted eighth note and a 16th note which can make the last beat. 5 steps to apply rest to a given time signature. So first you define the time signature as duples, triple, or quadruple under the simple time, compound time, or hybrid time. Then you use a whole rest for an entire measure of silence in any time signature. Now you use only one rest for one complete beat, and you complete a partial beat or pulse with a rest of the same value. And a strong beat or pulse carries one weak beat or pulse, and a medium beat or pulse carries one weak beat or pulse, so that's where the strong, medium, and weak beats come in. Adding rests to a measure in simple time. A whole rest can be used to indicate a whole measure of silence in any time signature. So it doesn't matter what the time signature is, you always use a whole rest and nothing else when you need a whole measure of silence. So in 4/4 time, which is C, you use a whole rest. In 4/8 time, you use a whole rest. In 2/2 time, you use a whole rest. In 3/4 time, you use a whole rest. In any time signature, you always use a whole rest for a whole measure of silence. Duple and quadruple meter. When adding rests to a measure in simple time, place them so that they show one complete beat. In quadruple time, join beats 1 and 2 or beats 3 and 4 in a single rest, but use separate rests for beats 2 and 3. Combine 2 rests into one when both rests are in the first half or the second half of the measure. So in the first example, we used a half rest a half rest, and for the second half there is a half note. So this is correct because you can join beats 1 and 2 as said over here. Now the second one, there is a half note at the beginning and a half rest in the second half, and that's also correct because you can join beats 3 and 4 in a single rest. The third one, there is a quarter note and a quarter rest, and another quarter rest and a quarter note, and that's correct because you must use separate rests for beats 2 and 3. So over here, it's the same thing. There are 2 quarter notes, one at the beginning and one at the end, but you're not allowed to use a half rest because then that would be using one rest for beats 2 and 3, and that's not allowed because you need to use separate rests for beats 2 and 3. Now the one below is 2/4 time, so there is 1 quarter note, so you have to have 1 quarter rest at the beginning, and there's 1 quarter note at the beginning, so you use a quarter rest at the end. And then this is just like the one on top but with 8th notes. So there's an 8th note at the start and an 8th note at the end, and you have to put 2 8th rests because you're not allowed to use one rest for beats 2 and 3. Or like you're not allowed to use, you have to use one rest on each half because these 2 rests are on different halves, so you're not allowed to join them. Now the last one is the same thing. There's 2 8th rests, and over here the rest is joined, and this one's wrong because you can't join rests that are on different halves unless it's a whole rest. In triple meter, rests on beats 1 and 2 can either be shown separately or combined. Beats 2 and 3 are both weak. For this reason, rests on beats 2 and 3 cannot be combined because strong beats can carry weak beats, but weak beats can't carry other weak beats. So in the first example, there's a quarter rest, another quarter rest, by the way it's 3/4 time, a quarter rest, another quarter rest, and a quarter note, and that's correct because the weak beat isn't carrying anything. But if you join these 2 quarter rests into one half rest, that would also be correct because the strong beat is carrying a weak beat, which would work. And then there is a quarter note, so yeah. And the third one, there is a quarter note and 2 quarter rests. But the last one, there's a quarter note and it joined the 2 quarter rests into one half rest. But that wouldn't work because then it would be a weak beat carrying another weak beat, and that's not allowed. So rests on beats 2 and 3 cannot be combined because weak beats will be carrying another weak beat. so that wouldn't work. So the last one is incorrect. Now the one below is 3/8 time, so it's just like the one above. An eighth rest, and an eighth note is correct. A quarter rest, which is these two eighth rests joined with a eighth note, is also correct. An eighth note with two eighth rests is also correct, but an eighth note with these two eighth rests joined into one quarter rest is incorrect because there is a weak beat carrying a weak beat. Now the last one is 3/2 time, so there is a half rest, and a half note, which is correct because this weak beat or this weak beat isn't carrying anything. And then in the second one there is a whole rest, which is basically two half rests combined. So a whole rest with a half note, which is correct because the strong beat is carrying a weak beat and not the opposite, or not weak and weak. In the third one there is a half note with two half rests, but the last one, which is a half note with these two half rests combined into one whole rest, is incorrect because these two weak beats, the first weak beat is carrying the second weak beat, and that's not allowed, so it's incorrect. Completing single beats with rests. When adding rests to any measure, each beat must be made complete before continuing to fill in any additional beats with silence. Sometimes completing the beat requires more than one rest. Each part of the beat should be completed before starting the next part. So here it's in 2/2 time, and here is a half note, an eighth note, and since it's 2/2 time, you have to complete the beat first. So this is only a quarter of the required beat, which is a half note. So since this is an eighth note, you first put an eighth rest to complete half of a beat, which is half of a half note, and then you have half, so then you add another quarter rest to make it a half note. So this whole thing combined, well, I should draw another circle here, and another circle here, because these two circles are a complete beat, so you have to complete this beat before adding other rests. Writing rests on the staff. Remember that rests are drawn in specific places on the staff, so the whole rest needs to be hanging down the fourth line. This is the whole rest, and it's hanging down the fourth line, which is this line. Now the half rest is sitting above the third line, so over here is the half rest, and it's above the third line. Now the quarter rest, so this is the quarter rest, and it looks like a Z, so it's drawn like a sideways Z with a sideways C, or like, so that's how you draw quarter rest. It starts on the top space and it ends on the bottom space. The eighth rest, which is this, the circle, which is like this little ball thing, goes on the fourth space. And then the 16th rest, the first circle, the top circle, goes on the fourth space, and the bottom circle goes on the third space, and the bottom circle goes on the second space from the bottom. And if there was a 30-second rest, then it would look like this. So it goes on the fourth, fifth, and third space. So like this. Oops. Except it wouldn't be that long, so like this. Compound time. In compound time, the basic beat is the dotted note time signatures in compound time has 6, which is compound duple, 9, which is compound triple, or 12, which is compound quadruple as the upper number. Compound duple time. In compound duple time, there are 2 beats in each measure. A beat is a group of 3 pulses and is represented by a dotted note. The upper number of the time signature is always 6, which indicates that each measure contains 6 pulses, so 2 beats of 3 pulses. The lower number, which indicates that the note that receives 1 pulse, can be 4, 8, or 16. So in 6/8 time, there are 2 groups of 3/8 notes, and in 6/4 time there are 3 groups of quarter notes, and in the top example they're 8th notes because there's an 8 as the bottom number. In the second one they are quarter notes because there's a 4. Now compound triple time. In compound triple time there are 3 beats in each measure. The upper number of the time signature is always 9, which indicates that there are 9 pulses that are grouped within 3 beats of 3 pulses in each measure. The lower number, which indicates the note that receives 1 pulse, can be 4, 8, or 16. So in the example below, it's 9, 8, so there are 9 pulses with 3 beats of 3 pulses, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the 8 at the bottom means that each note is an 8th note. So as you can see, these notes are all 8th notes. It can also be written as 3 dotted quarter notes. It's equal to this thingy. Compound quadruple time. In compound quadruple time, there are 4 beats in each measure. The upper number of the time signature is always 12, which indicates that each measure contains 12 pulses. The lower number, which indicates the note that receives 1 pulse, can be 4, 8, or 16. So in this example, it's 12, 8, and there are 4 beats of 3 pulses. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And the 8 at the bottom means that each of these notes is an 8th note. It can also be written as 4 dotted quarter notes. And if it said 12, 4, that would mean still these 3 groupings, but each note would be a quarter note. So it would be like this. And the reason it's a quarter note is because it's a 4 on the bottom, which means quarter note. And it would be or a 3 dotted half notes. Now here is something that shows you the comparison between simple time and compound time. So the top there's simple duple time, simple triple time, and simple quadruple time. And at the bottom, there's compound duple time, compound triple time, and compound quadruple time. So it shows you the basic beats and how it's grouped. Adding rests in 6/8 time. A whole rest is used for a whole measure of silence. Dotted quarter rests are generally used to show the main beat. A quarter rest followed by an 8th rest is also acceptable. A strong pulse can be combined with the weaker pulse that follows. A weak pulse cannot be combined with another weak pulse. A weak pulse cannot be combined with the strong or medium pulse that follows, not followers, whoops. So in 6/8 time, it's strong, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak. That's the strong and weak pattern. So over here, there is a dotted quarter note at the end. So at the beginning, you can put over here it said dotted quarter rests are used to show the main beat. So the main beats are strong, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak, medium, weak, weak. So these are the main beats. So you can use a dotted quarter rest to finish the first beat, but it said that a quarter rest followed by an eighth rest is also acceptable. So you can also write it as a quarter rest with a dotted a quarter rest with an eighth rest. These two are equal to the same thing. But you can't write it as 3/8 rests because you can't, that's incorrect. You have to combine the pulses. And then this is also incorrect. You can't have an eighth rest with a quarter rest because if you have that, the two weak pulses will be combined. So the first weak pulse, which is this, will be carrying this weak pulse, and that's incorrect. Irregular groups. A duplet is a group of two notes that are played in the time of three notes of the same value. Duplets are found in compound time. So you will know it's a duplet if you have two notes with a 2 on the top. That means that it's played in the time of three notes of the same value. So since they're eighth notes, it will be played as 3/8 notes, which is equal to a dotted quarter note. A quadruplet is a group of four notes that are played in the time of three notes of the same value. Quadruplets are also found in compound time. So a quadruplet is a group of four notes with a 4 on the top, and that it's played in the time of three of the notes of the same value. So since they're eighth notes, it will be played in the time of 3/8 notes, which is also equal to a dotted quarter note. A quintuplet is a group of five notes that are played in the time of 3, 4, or 6 notes of the same value, depending on the time signature. So if there's a group of notes with a 5 on the top, it can either be 3 of the same value, or 4 of the same value, or 6 of the same value in compound time, simple time, or compound time. So when you see one of these, you can probably figure out if it's simple time, then it's definitely this. If it's compound time, you could try to figure out by seeing the other notes around it if it's 3 or 6. A sextuplet is a group of 6 notes that are played in the time of 4 notes of the same value. So if you see this 6 notes with the 6 on the top, it means that it's played in the time of 4 of the same value. A septuplet is a group of 7 notes that are played in the time of 3 or 4 notes of the same value, depending on the time signature. So there's 7 notes with a 7 on the top. That means it's played in the time of 3 of those notes or 4 of those notes. So it's 3 of those notes if it's compound time. If it's simple time, then it's 4 of those notes. Hybrid meters. Hybrid meters combine simple and compound time. They can be duple, triple, or quadruple. Hybrid duple time. In hybrid duple time, each measure contains 5 pulses that are grouped into 2 beats. Usually, the pulses are grouped in a 3+2 pattern, but they can also be grouped in a 2+3 pattern. The upper number of the time signature is always 5. The lower number can be 2, 4, 8, or 16. Notes that are the value of an eighth or less are joined together by a beam if they belong to the same beat. A sound that is held for a complete measure must be written as 2 notes joined by a tie. Here are some things in hybrid meter. So in 5/2, that means each half note is equal to 1 pulse. So if you see this thing, the top is the beats and the bottom are the pulses. So in 5/2 time, it's always grouped in a 3 plus 2 or 2 plus 3 sometimes, but over here it's 3 plus 2. So here's 3 and here's 2. And the bottom is just a basic pulse, so there are 5 half notes. In 5/4 time, it's also grouped in 2 plus 3, and the top are the beats, so it's 3 plus 2, and the bottom are 5 quarter notes. In 5/8 time, the top is another 3 plus 2, but they're different note values since each eighth note is equal to 1 pulse. And the bottom is just 5 eighth notes. And in 5/16, that means that each 16th note is equal to 1 pulse. So the bottom there are 5 16th notes, and the top is grouped in a 3 plus 2. So the first one has 3 16th notes, and the second one has 2 16th notes. Hybrid triple time. In hybrid triple time, each measure contains 7 pulses that are grouped into 3 beats. Usually the notes are grouped in a 3 plus 2 plus 2 pattern, but they can also be grouped in a 2 plus 3 plus 2 or 2 plus 2 plus 3 pattern. The upper number of the time signature is always 5. The lower number can be 2, 4, 8, or 16. Notes that are the value of an eighth or less are joined together by a beam if they belong to the same beat. A sound that is held for a complete measure must be written as 2 notes joined by a tie. So here is things in compound and hybrid triple meter. So the top is always 7, and just like before, the top shows the beats. So in this one, it's grouped in a 3 plus 2 plus 2 pattern. So here, the first one has 3 beats, and the second one has 2 beats, and the third one has 2 beats, and the bottom just shows the basic pulses. In 7/4 time, the first one also shows 3 beats, the second is 2 beats, and the third is 2 beats. And all of them are 3, 2, 2, and 3, 2, 2, but they are different because the bottom number is different. So the first one is 2, the second is 4, third is 8, and the fourth is 16. So in the first one, the 2 means that each half note receives 1 pulse. The 4 means that each quarter note receives 1 pulse. The 8 means that each eighth note receives 1 pulse, and the 16 means that each 16th note receives 1 pulse. Hybrid quadruple time. In hybrid quadruple time, the upper number of the time signature may be 10, 9, 10, or 11, and the lower number may be 2, 4, 8, or 16. There are 4 beats to the measure, and each beat contains either 2 or 3 pulses. Adding rests in hybrid time. So this was the first, I'm going to show you the example of compound hybrid quadruple time. So here is 10/8, so each eighth note receives 1 pulse, and the first one is 3, the second is 2, the third is 3, and the fourth is 2, and it will always follow this pattern. So for 16, it's the same 3, 2, 3, 2, and they are 16th notes at the bottom. And 11/16, it will be 3, 3, 3, 2, and they are 16th notes at the bottom. And 9/8 will be 3, 2, 2, 2, and their eighth notes at the bottom. So here is how you add rests in hybrid time. You'll use a whole rest to indicate a complete measure of rest. So no matter what time signature, you always use a whole rest to indicate a complete measure of rest. In hybrid double time, there are 2 beats to the measure with an accent pattern of strong weak. Complete each beat with the single rest. So it's the first 3 beats are strong, and the last 2, 4 and 5 are weak. So you have to complete each beat with a single rest. So if you have 2 8th notes at the end, that's 1 weak beat, so it doesn't matter. But you want to rest at the beginning, so you have to write it as 1 rest like this. You're not allowed to separate it in 2 rests. You have to complete each beat with a single rest. Now in the second one, it's still 5/8, and there's 4, 5 at the end, and 1, 2, 3 has notes. So this is 1 beat, so it doesn't matter. And for the rest at the end, you have to put in 1 rest. You can't separate it into 2 8th rests. You have to complete each beat with a single rest. In hybrid triple time, there are 3 beats to the measure with an accent pattern of strong, weak, weak. You may combine a strong beat followed by a weak beat into a single rest, but do not combine 2 weak beats into 1 rest. So if you have 7, 8, and the 2 weak beats have notes, you can put it into 1 rest, but you're not allowed to put it into 3 separate rests. And if you have 3 notes at the beginning for the first strong beat and you need 2 rests, you need 2 beats of rests. You can write it like this into 2 separate rests, but you're not allowed to write it into 1, because then the first weak beat would be carrying this second weak beat, and that's not correct. In hybrid quadruple time, there are 4 beats to the measure with an accent pattern of strong, weak, medium, weak. You may combine a strong beat followed by a weak beat or a medium beat followed by a weak beat into a single rest. Do not combine a weak beat followed by a medium beat into 1 rest. Also, do not combine a compound beat, which is a group of 3 pulses, and a simple beat, which is a group of 2 pulses, into 1 rest. So in 10/16 time, it's strong, weak. So the strong and weak has 1 rest. Okay, let's start all over. So first, the 4 at the end has a note, and then you have to have a rest at the beginning, so you can put it into 1 rest like this. So this is 5 beats. No, 6 beats, so you can put it into 6 beats, but you're not allowed to separate it into 2 rests, even though it's still 6 beats or pulses, because that's just not allowed. You have to use 1 rest if there's a strong. And if you have 3 at the beginning and 3 at the end, you still need 4 more 16th notes. You need 4 more 16th rests. So you have to put it into 2 rests, because it's a weak beat and then a medium beat. So weak cannot carry a medium beat, so they have to be in 2 rests. But this one's incorrect because it's put into 1 rest. So the first weak beat will be carrying a medium beat, and that's not allowed because weak beats can't carry any other beats.